everyone. It's absolute pleasure and honor to be able to present in DevOps Talks. I was introduced to this forum by one of my classmates. You must have heard just before, Aditya Garg. My area has been mostly on the corporate financial systems and program management at a large corporations. I also have worked with the startup companies. I just wanted to share how a global PMO works in an M&A integration and how the DevOps and QA ecosystem may help deliver in time, on schedule, and under budget for such a complex deliverable, which is in a global PMO. Just look at this slide and you will get an idea of the scale and complexity and the unpredictability of how the schedule going to work. So this is a real M&A integration I worked with. So you see the dates. June 27, Sanofi and Boehringer signed a contract that is going to be a $25 billion swap. And IT is not notified yet. IT doesn't know yet. IT is going to be told that it may happen. You know why? Because look at this next news. FTC requires divestiture at the condition to propose $13.5 billion. So the company agrees, but it's not final until FTC approves it. And now is a kicker. Look at the date when FTC approves it and the date where Sanofi and Boehringer confirms it. You may ask, it's only 4 days. It's a year is different, but December 28 to January 2. And if you know that January 2 is, they're announcing it, but January 1 is really a go live date for a new company. For the IT, this is the day when they're going to switch and change all the servers and the IP addresses and everything to a new company because it's acquired. You may think that, oh, there was 6 months, but there was no 6 months because the company, both the companies still doesn't know it's going to happen or not. The IT is informed around somewhere in September that we need to do this. They are preparing all the things that will happen on day one. Most of the time it is the infrastructure team working very hard with a PMO which is set up. At this point, both the companies cannot communicate a lot because there is so much restrictions put on what communication can happen. So this is all a period of so much confusion, and you don't know what the timeline is going to look like. You're still preparing for it. You don't have enough time to really test all the things which are going to happen. And that's where a good communication among different teams, which can skirt around all the regulatory requirements and still under it, a good testing requirement, because you are testing all these things and you're going to pull the trigger on day one and you are not going to have a lot of time. So you have to continuously doing it, continuously testing it. You are still not able to release it until day one comes. and you don't even know what that day one is going to be and how much lead time you're going to get. What happens in a typical M&A day one scenario? Here's the thing. IT is usually last to know because the senior leadership is working on it. The finance is informed about it because they need to manage the financing of the acquisition and swap. They have to start working with the banks. But until the final word is out, IT is not informed about it because IT is not in the front end. IT is at the back end that need things to happen once it's decided. That means you have less lead time to prepare and plan. And in all terms, plan in the schedule, plan in terms of manpower, plan in terms of how much money you're going to need. And time to market, which is a typical term used, but in this scenario where it's M&A, it's called day one go live, when you're going to point all the things to a new company. It's very fast. And you don't know what to communicate because you know, even senior leadership doesn't know when things are going to happen and what we communicated. So the communication is the key, but at the same time, people don't know what to communicate and when to communicate. And then comes the corporate culture differences. And if I go previous slide and think about French and German, if you know about these two countries, they are next to each other, but the culture difference is tremendous. The language is different, the way they work is different, the attitudes toward work and coworker and the company loyalties, everything is so different. That means now you are all of a sudden working with 42 different cultures many times. Even companies in USA itself, two different companies may have a very different culture of work. Now, personal changes and turnover is very high, sometimes because it's a redundancy and companies start laying off people immediately, or people start jumping ship because they are not sure what's going to happen to them. That means you may not find the right people to do the right job. That means you need to, again, it becomes more important that you have right processes in place, you have teams already defined, and communicating to each other at every step. And the testing becomes important, the documentation becomes important because you are handing over to the things to people who may not even know about them. The org structure changes, so the people start reporting to different people on different teams, and the teams which never work together. Global PMO may be different now. There may be different people who's going to be approving your budgets, and at the same time, you need to plan how much money you're going to need and forecast to the time frame. Procurement process may be totally different, and now you don't know how to procure your resources or equipments or software licenses. This all creates so much of the confusion. And it's amazing to be in the middle of this IT integration work in an M&A environment. And that's where it's become greater need of collaborate among developers, the testers, the infra team, the operation, and the communication has to go all the way. So there's so many moving parts in an M&A integration. If you have never heard of TSA, Transition Service Agreement, so if it's a new company and you're all the assets are in old companies, servers or data centers. There is a transition service agreement that, okay, during the transition, during the M&A integration, they're going to keep supporting it. It is very detailed agreement. They define what kind of service level is going to be, what kind of data they're going to provide. There is a very strict requirement on what data they can share, and they can give it to you so that you can put into your new company's systems and servers. At what point you're going to be able to move those servers and application and data into new data center. And another challenge comes into IT assets. You may have license agreements in place which may or may not work in a new entity. And even if they work, the companies may want to have a new agreements and new negotiations. You need to be working on that at the same time. Application rationalization, in this particular case, we had more than 600 applications that need to be rationalized. Okay, what application you're going to use in new environment, what application you're going to drop, what application data you need to pull in, what kind of data you need to retain and required for audit purposes or regulatory requirement, what application on sunset, is there a redeployment, re-implementation? There's so much happening in the application space. Then comes to the master service agreements and service level agreements you have with various vendors. Those need to be renegotiated because it's totally different environment, maybe different company, geography may differ. You can see that what's going on. The supplier, there may be duplication of supplier. You need to decide which supplier you're going to keep. IT spend, request, approval, and procurement process may be totally different, and you don't know how and where to get your approvals. Transition of all various systems. Then you have to, record and keep everything you are doing during this one, because there is requirement from the regulatory internal audits and also for the future references. If you have that many moving parts in any program, guess what? You need a solid process in place, solid methodology to be able to work among different teams and communicate on time among different teams. When you are transitioning data from one data center into another data center, and the data is sensitive, for example, let's say employee data which need to be retained, quality becomes even more important, because you are passed data into existing system in a old data center. Now you have put into a maybe totally new application. You have ported this data into a new application, and now you need to make sure the data is consistent, and you should be able to answer questions from regulators in the future and also your internal auditors. Give you a good example that, let's say you have an application, let's say I'm talking about, let's say, a simple Oracle or any ERP application where you have all of your accounting information, you have financial information, you have your HR information, and now you are to move into, let's say, new ERP system, which is in, maybe SAP. You can see that it's a German company maybe using SAP. Now you have to copy all those data, moving into a new application. Now there may be a requirement of the number of licenses you may or may not have. So you are talking to the company about getting the licenses. Now you are talking with your application people and infra people to get access to those systems, the new employees you have, because they will need to be accessing new application to get their information, and maybe using for reports and all that. The links which have been working before, not working now. So there's so many things. Guess what? You need to have good tools and technologies, methodologies, so that the coding, the building, the testing, packaging, releasing, configuration, monitoring, all work in a very synchronized way. If anything fails, let's say you are ready to move the data and people onto new application, but you don't have a licenses. You need to have those things in place. You need to have the data tested before you release to the public. And that's where having DevOps kind of methodologies with good quality control becomes even more important. And you have no way but to work with IT operation, developers, testers, deployment, infra, and work in a cohesive team. This took, in my particular case, it took 2 years to complete the entire integration. And we had to do them in a very methodical way, so that at the end, when you say, okay, it's closed, it's closed, because you don't have no more budget for any integration work after that. Because if there is some integration work left, company has to eat it. They cannot write it down. And handling a global PMO in an integration is really very, very interesting, challenging, fun, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you are following defined methodologies, get it done. Make sure that your quality folks are on top of it. Make sure that your developers are talking to the testers, and the testers then giving a yes to your release team and configuration team. It's all becomes more important. It's smaller. If it's a smaller work, maybe you can have informal process and get it done. But if it's a large $25 billion kind of integration work, you have no way but to have all the formal processes and hand over from one team to another in a timely manner, in a well communicated way. I probably would like to stop at this point and open it for Q&A, and happy to answer not only one question, but maybe more than one questions.
Yes, thank you so much. This was fabulous. I think Bill has collected some questions for you.
Yes, thank you very much. This is really a terrific presentation and very informative. In general, especially when you're dealing with some complex M&As as you have, obviously the involvement of the PMO is critical on it. Are there any special tools or processes that you use to ensure that the TSA takes place and the individual groups, organization A, organization B, can get in sync, albeit they are probably utilizing completely different operating procedures?
Well, in this, initially we kind of didn't want to do it, but in this, we have implemented, while we were doing integration, we implemented a PPM tool to manage the entire program. That was new to both organizations. We implemented a new TBM tool they call Technology Business Management to manage the IT expenditure more effectively and also align it to the revenue stream and new organization. We used SharePoint where people could share the documents. And we also used another tool, forgetting the name, where all the rationalization and status of all the applications were managed. We also used a tool for all the document management and document approval workflow, so that all different things, there was different tools used, so that it's not that he said, she said, it's always there. Anyone can go and see the status of particular task or particular work. Even the document management was complex, because when you say it's a transition service agreement, you are supposed to provide this data, and there's a team who is working with the old data center team and all people from the old company into the new company. This has to workflow of the document management and say, okay, these are the data provided, the testing is done, and there is a validation and sign off on the data, and that is documented. So everything was kind of used and managed through the tools.
And how, to build on that, and thank you very much, that's a very good answer. And when we send these questions out, we really appreciate responses, if you can, to indicate the tools that you used, so we can all take advantage of that. That's great. How do you handle situations where there's information that is critical to the success of the M&A, but it's extremely confidential, so there may be some regulatory issues associated, be it on Wall Street or something like that?
And that's where the PMO depended on our legal teams before we could communicate into and I'm talking about IT PMO, not the overall global PMO. Global PMO had their own set of issues. But from the IT perspective, we always depended on the legal team to say, okay, this is the information you can share, and this is the communication you can do between the two teams. Because you could see in my presentation that December regulatory body said okay, and within few days we were live in the new company.
Right.
That means there has been prep work going on before that, and they were just waiting for the final approval. If the approval comes, then let's switch the servers to the new IP addresses and all that. If not, then just hold on. But be ready. You already have your testing done and all that, that if you need to, you should be able to pull that trigger pretty fast. And that communication then went through PMO to all the stakeholders managing that work.
Very good, yeah. We have quite a few more questions that we'll go ahead and share with you, but you've been fantastic. This has been very informative, and I think it really really presents the importance of quality from one step to the other, because if one step fails, it can be a domino effect.
Yes, yeah, because in this one, as we were working, the most challenging part, in my opinion, and there were so many other, was working with the license agreements, the IT assets agreement, various companies. Some companies will work with you, and other companies would try to see the opportunity and try to arm twist you and get a better rate. And those negotiations sometimes took longer than they should have. And then other teams had to wait until a final go from IT operations that, okay, we got the licenses, let's move. In some
Oh,
cases, we say, you know what, we're not going to even use this application, drop it. We're going to just migrate into.
Aashu, we're getting the hook here from Masa. We could talk about this subject for quite a while. So again, thank you very much, and look forward to continuing this at a later time. Masa?
Aashu, thanks so much. I got a lot more than what I thought I was going to get out of this talk. So it's really, really highly appreciated. I think this is, one more awesome addition to the repertoire of topics that we have for the DOQ Talk. So really, really appreciate it. And thank you again for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity.